reason why I wanted to do this webinar is that I have gone through a lot of knee issues myself. And if I knew this back in my 20s and 30s, I think I would have avoided a lot of injuries. And I am it's fair to say too, though, is that you can get through these injuries. So I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling young, I guess you could say, on the tennis court. I think that's all what we all want to do is feel good, feel like we can move well. Okay. So with this recording, I started doing the webinar, the presentation, and I wanted to simplify things. I think sometimes it gets complicated. So I'm going to make this pretty simple today. All right. So I'm going to share my screen right now and then we'll get going. Here we go. Let's get started. So like I said, I was starting to get into it and it was getting really complicated. Things could get pretty complicated. This is not a one size fits all, but I feel like if you do these things, there is no way you won't feel better. Like these are the things that most people have problems with. I just talked to a friend back home where I used to live, and he's going through knee issues, and the things I talked to him about is like new to him. And he's a big soccer player, and he's my age, and you can't really it's so painful to walk afterwards, and that's not what we want. We want to enjoy ourselves a little bit more, right? So let's talk about why the knee hurts and then what we can do about it, okay? So I'm going to make it really simple. It's an imbalance of muscles in the leg, okay? Now, the main idea, especially for tennis players, is that we overuse our quads and underuse our hamstrings and glutes. And ironically, the hamstrings and glutes are actually the strongest parts of your glutes, especially are the strongest parts of your leg. So those are like I guess you could say they are the firing mechanisms. They're the ones that are going to really give you the power. The sprints, the quick movements. The quads are good for keeping you low, and that's what we have to do when we hit a tennis ball. The problem I feel is that not that players don't think like don't. I think it's more the point is that they're not using the quads or sorry the glutes and the hamstrings and because they're not thinking, and if they don't think, a lot of times the overriding system is use the quads. So if you can't, like, if you're sitting there and squeeze your butt, squeeze your hamstrings, you know can you do that? And that's the feeling you should have when you are sprinting to a ball. You're going to hit a tennis ball, you're loading to hit a tennis ball. That's exactly what you should be feeling. But a lot of us don't really think of it like that, right? So we just let our bodies do what it's supposed to do, just like, all right, I'm not going to focus. And then I think the overriding system, like I said, is the quads then just take over. So you have to like practice this outside of the tennis court so that when you go on the tennis court, it's a lot easier to do, because it's really hard to play tennis and think, oh, I got to squeeze my butt, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the hamstrings. You know what I mean? Like it's not easy. So you got to do this in the gym, but you also have to think about doing this when you are, walking down the steps, for example. Like that's a time where your quads will really take over, and that's where you can get some knee pain. Squeeze your butt, work on that. The glutes will help keep that pain away. And the pain, by the way, is generated by like tightness around the knee. And the problem is the knee is like the dumbest joint, they call it, the dumbest joint. They don't the pain doesn't tell you exactly what the problem is. So it's a lot of tightness going on, especially in the quads, that you need to alleviate by, over using the other side of the leg. Now, the other thing I would mention is if you are in an injury, or you are experiencing a lot of tightness and stuff, the stretching and things will be great. You need to stretch it and you need to get blood flowing there. So heating pad, use a Theragun like in the quads around the knee. I think that will help with the blood flow, because blood flow doesn't really flow a whole lot in the knee. So it doesn't heal very fast. So you want to initiate that as much as possible if you are going through a lot of tightness and pain. Okay. But I'm not gonna really get into like the stretching and all that kind of stuff. I'm actually gonna get into the strengthening part. Maybe another webinar, I'll get into that, the stretching part, but I think if you strengthen the backside of your legs, you're going to be in good shape. Okay, so let's watch this video real quick.
We were gonna do some glute bridges and some glute hamstring curls.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it once in a while, but the idea here is I want to make sure, just so that we're on the same page, I'm just using a balancing ball that you can buy on Amazon really easy. And I'm going to be doing performing glute bridges. Now, these are something you could do, and I'll show you how to make it easier, harder, and this will help really strengthen the glutes, but also help you engage them as well. Okay.
Okay, there's some hamstring curls. So you're gonna see that I'm gonna try to get my leg at a 90 degrees, and I'm just gonna push up through my heel and lift my body up. I'm trying to make the line of my torso and my quads to be lined up here. And then I'm gonna go back. So I'm trying to hold that position for just a little bit and then back down. Now, if that's a little hard, you can put your feet on a table. So I could slide over here and I could use a bench or something like that, or a chair, kind of set a table, maybe not a table, that's a little too high, but something like this. And again, I'm raising up, okay? So that's one thing. Now, if it's a little too easy though, there's a way to make it harder, okay? So I'm in this position, I'm gonna lift the leg up and go up. So holding that for a little longer makes it pretty challenging. I could switch legs, see which leg is a little harder for me to do. Okay, but these are called glute bridges. You're gonna really work your glutes, which are really important. Okay.
So if you do one leg and you feel weakness on one, make sure you do more reps of that side. Okay.
The next thing we're gonna do is work on the hamstrings. Now the hamstrings I feel are the most important protector of your knee. So we're gonna work them in a couple ways. So the first one is the hamstring curl. We're gonna go up and then we're gonna bring the ball away, bring it forward. The whole idea is I'm pushing down with my heel as I'm doing this, okay? If this is too easy, lift a leg up and go. I'm really isolating my hand.
So this position is also working on the hamstrings, and this is something you could buy to slide on like Amazon. I keep saying Amazon, but you know, any online store, but you can slide it under a door. But I think it's important that you see the position you need to be in. I think this is one of the better ones that will really target the hamstrings to strengthen them. Because one thing we do a lot is we like, unfortunately, we sit a lot, and when we sit, our hamstrings get weak, and when they get weak, they get tight, and when they get tight, they're easy to be pulled, you know, a pulled hamstring. So the idea is we want to avoid that by strengthening it so that they can stay, you know, strong during the time when you need them. Like if you take a quick sprinting motion, that's when your hamstrings are getting used. And or like doing a, you know, a bending motion, you want to use those hamstrings, and if they're not strong enough, that's where you can get hurt.
Hamstrings by getting my knees on a pad, and I go behind me, I have a bar, and the bar is going to hold my calves, push on my calves, and when I go down, I'm going to try to lift myself up. Okay, it's not easy to do, so I have a band to help me. Okay, so the idea is I'm going to try, and I'll give you a different angle of this in a second, but I'm going to try to keep everything still as I do this. Okay, so I'm going to be going straight down.
So a common mistake is that players that have done this in the past is they'll stick their butt out and they'll bend at the waist basically when they do this. And when you bend at the waist, you will not feel anything in the hamstrings. You got to keep everything really straight to isolate the hamstrings.
Straight down, keep everything as still as I can. Okay, now if I can go further down, great. But I don't want to bend my back and hunch over as I do this, because then my hamstrings won't be working. So I'm trying to keep everything as straight and aligned as possible so my hamstrings are working the whole time. Ankle weights, if they're heavy enough.
So sometimes like that, you can't duplicate that, maybe you're traveling and stuff. So this one's like a little easier. You could do at the gym, or, you can travel a little easier to work out your hamstrings. And you honestly don't even need weights. You could maybe even use a band to pull up on. You'll see the position I'm getting myself in, but you could use a pulley system if you're at a hotel with that has a gym, things like that. Just want to give you some ideas on how to build the hamstring up.
Could work. There's something called monkey feet that you can get that allows your feet to attach to a dumbbell. But basically, if you have a heavy enough ankle weight, you can bend down and try to get your leg parallel to your torso. And then all I'm going to be doing is doing hamstring curls like this. This is really good for me balancing as well. But the idea is this is easy. The higher I go, the harder it is. The higher my leg with the weight on, the harder it is. So another one I like to do is having a wide stance. And all I'm going to do is pretend the ceiling's really low.
I do this one as a warm up before I will work out. I like this one too. So it could be a workout for you, but I also like this as a warm up. But also I do this with my clients to see how mobile they are. Because a lot of people in this position, you'll hear me say it too, is they bend at the back too much. And that just tells me that they're pretty tight in the hamstrings and glute area. And that's something that we need to work on, right? But if you can sink down and move from one leg to the other, then you'll know that you're doing pretty good with your mobility.
And I'm going to lean to one side. As I lean to the side, my toe goes in that direction. And I'm trying to sink down. I'm squeezing my hamstring really high. My toe on the other side is pointing straight ahead. And then I'm going to slide to the other. My toe goes to the side I'm putting my weight on. And then my other foot, again, is pointing that way. So notice that I'm straight up and down. I could have a pole to help me with this if I need to, because this position isn't easy to sink down. A lot of people will bend forward and they're not able to hold this position. So to see a different angle, you can see me going here and I'm leaning. Notice I'm not leaning forward too much. I'm trying to stay aligned, squeezing the hamstrings, holding for about 3 seconds or so, and going back and forth. So again, hamstrings, 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 okay? Having a medicine band.
All right, so these last ones are actually focusing on the hip too. So you'll see a few that you might have heard of, but I have one at the end that you might not have done much, and I recommend it. I think it's really good to strengthen some parts of the hip that might be needed to help stabilize the knee.
Exercise band, where all you're going to do is put it around your ankle and you're going to do side shuffles. So I'm going to get in a ready position like in tennis, right? And I'm just shuffling back and forth, squeezing my butt, keeping my ankle or my toes facing forward. And I'm not tilting. Notice that I'm not trying to tilt as I go. Okay. I'm trying to keep my foot parallel to the ground as I slide. I'm not lifting and tilting. Okay. So I'm staying down, doing this back and forth. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is do the monster walk. So you can go forward or back. I'm going to go backwards first, but I'm going to be pivoting. Okay. So I'm going to pivot with tension the whole time with my legs straight. Okay. These are called monster walks. So then I go forward and I'm just keeping tension. So I'm feeling this in the hip. Okay. And now I'm just going to use one arm to.
So this is the other one for your hip that I really recommend you trying, and you can do it with or without a band. Bands make it obviously harder.
Hold myself in a plank, and I'm going to hold this position. I'm going to feel a lot of pressure, a lot of like intensity here because it's working really hard. Now you can use 2 hands to help you a little bit more, but this is the position you want to strive for. And then we're going to go forward with our knee. So I have a band giving me tension here, and I'm just going right straight forward as I work this out.
All right. So before we move on, Janan, do you have any questions on what I went over so far?
No, no, I mean, I really like the one exercise, the first one where you go down on your knees and go up. I've done that one and that is a really good one to use. I like it.
Yep, and we'll talk about like how much you should be doing on a regular basis. I think it's all about routines, right? It's
Yeah.
not that important of what you do once in a while. It's more important of what you're doing regularly. And I think if you do certain things regularly, you'll get those results you're looking for. Okay. The
Okay.
last one I wanted to share is the knees past toes. So there are three things, three positions, and I'll explain why I really like this. And I do this a lot, and I'll go over the details as we go. But I want to start the video now. Here we go.
Getting your knee in a position that's related to tennis. So what I mean by that is, for example, if I'm going to serve and bend my knees to go after the ball when I serve, look at my knee. My knees go forward as I bend, right? So this position needs to get strong. I can't just do it during tennis and expect my knees to be able to handle that pressure if I never do it outside of playing tennis. Now, if I'm going to run for a ball, my knee kind of goes forward as I start the run. Okay, knee past toes. So we need to get the knee past the toes in a controlled manner so that you can do it on the court and not feel so taxing. You're not going to feel sore the next day as much because you've done this in the gym. So we're going to get started. I'm going to use some plates here, and I'm just going to raise my heel here. And all I'm going to do is get my knee.
So the idea is you could do any way of lifting your heels when you do this. I mean, you could literally be on your toes if you'd like when you do this, okay? But you can see that you can see that those triangles in front, those are just wedges that you could buy if you want to do it that way. But I just wanted to make it simple by using just some plates that I found or I had, on the wall that I'm just using to lift my heels up.
To go past my toes as I do a squat. You can hold.
So knees
Mm,
past toes, right? Back is straight, everything looks good. And that's the position I want to be in so that I can feel strong when I need to do that in tennis.
Hold this position if you'd like. And then I'm just going to go back up and again down. Now, when you're feeling pretty strong with that, you can take some pads here and just jet your knees forward and land on the pads and then try to work your way back up. So this is actually really good because I'm going to work my quads here. And then as I go up, I'm working my glutes and hamstrings. Okay. So I'm going to take this band.
So this is an easier version of the same thing.
I'm going to hold it as I go down to give myself some assistance, feel a little stronger, a little more support, and then back up. Put my heel up.
All right. So this one is so not a lot of exercises, by the way, just a few here. But this one's a lunging position. In tennis, we do lunge a lot. So I really recommend this one.
Just like we did before, I'm going to have my foot back and I'm going to lean my knee forward as I do this. Knee goes forward, back up. Knee is past the toes every time. So I'll put my leg.
So this is an easier version of it. Okay. So if that's too difficult, you can always do this. And if it's too easy, just add weight. Anytime in the weight room, you're like, oh, movement's easy. Well, add resistance, right?
Up like this. And I can even have something to hold myself, but the idea is I can do this in a little bit more controlled manner. This is a little easier for me. As I get better and better, I can lower the platform maybe to here and to here and eventually to the ground.
All right. So this is the last one, and I got a little music to the background of this, but basically all you're doing is walking backwards. And I'm going to pause it real quick here. All right. So you can see this is the position you're trying to be in. So the treadmill is off. I have to physically like push on the treadmill track and push it to make it move. And look at my knee position. It's past my toes. It's exactly where I want. It's a safe position There's no load in that position, so I don't have to worry about hurting myself for those that are kind of concerned about this. And you can just do this as you're walking a little bit, right? So let me go back to that. I kind of want to show that position one more time. Sorry, it was a pretty quick video here. All
And
right.
eventually to the ground.
So when you're doing, so the idea then is I would recommend this is the first thing I would do before the other knees past toes exercise. This is like a good warm up. Okay. And speaking of that, I wanted to finish with just a routine. So I think things can get complicated and you do too many things and then you don't know what's going to work. So my recommendation is just do something pretty simple and see if it helps, right? So like what I would do 2 or 3 days a week is, you're warming up with the treadmill. And if you do like a tennis match, okay? So if you're doing a tennis match, do this first. I wouldn't do all the other exercises, but I think this would be great because you could even try it. Try doing a squat before you get on the treadmill and then do some reverse walks, again with the treadmill off, right? And see how it feels after you do like 100 of those steps or 50, whatever feels good enough for you. Then do some. You'll feel a lot looser, and I think you'll feel more mobile. And I think that would be good because the whole idea is you want to be able to increase your range of motion so that when you go through a range of motion and you do it suddenly and quickly, you won't hurt yourself. And if your range of motion is short, a small range of motion, that means you don't have a lot of error, room for error. So if you go slightly past that range of motion, you're going to hurt yourself. So the whole idea is the warm up will increase your range of motion and obviously strengthen some parts of the knee as well. The hamstrings and glutes are naturally used when you do these backward steps. The next thing I would do is just try to do the 2 or 3 of the hamstring and glute exercises. And then I'm not going to tell you how many reps, but 2 to 3 sets is fine. And just until you feel, like you feel that burning feeling, right? When you work out, you can kind of feel that. I think do like 1 or 2 past that, reps past that, and you should be good. You're just doing body weight, so you can't really hurt yourself. I think that would be plenty. And, you can do 2 or 3 sets and see how you feel the next day. And maybe do one KPT, stands for knees past toes. So just maybe do 1 squat, 1 lunge, and that's all you're doing. And just do that for a few. Obviously you don't do back-to-back days. See how your hamstrings and glutes feel the next day, first of all. And if you're feeling pretty good, then maybe add a little weight, add more reps, add more sets. There's different ways of doing it. You could add volume, which is sets and reps, or you could add resistance, which is weight. So you could have dumbbells, you could hang on to them or something like that as well, or a weighted vest. But again, you're just trying to see what pushes you, but not too much where, you can't walk the next day, right? So you got to start small, work your way through this. But again, this is the routine I highly recommend. The reason why I recommend this is because I did it. This is exactly what I did to get my knees better. Every time I'm feeling a little weak in the knees, a little sore, I go to this routine. I feel great that the next day, much better. Okay, so I really recommend that to be your thing. Now with that, Janan, do you have any questions on this?
I do. The
Sure.
one thing I think of is like how to keep it like in a balancing routine. For instance, if you play tennis like 3 or 4 times a week, and you need to stretch and you need to do those strengthening exercises for your knees, when you play tennis, what's best to do that day? Stretching or maybe some strengthening afterwards, or do you strengthen before you play, or do you stretch before? I don't know.
Everyone's different. And the only way you're going to know is if you try things. I personally think that if you're going to play tennis, it wouldn't hurt to do any hamstring and glute activations. So what I mean by activations is basically you do like maybe 1 set of the hamstring and glute exercises and before you play tennis, and that will engage them, do some reverse walks, right? But you're not trying to tax your body so that tennis is extra hard. And the reason why I'd avoid the knees past toes like squats and lunges is because you're already doing that on the tennis court. And that's like running too much. What happens when you run too much? You get hurt, right? You know, like too much volume of anything, you'll eventually hurt yourself, no matter where you're at. So I don't think that tennis and doing knees past toes is too much. I think that is too much, but I do think doing reverse treadmill walks and then maybe a couple hamstring and glute activation exercises, by meaning just when I say activation, I'm just saying just do a couple, like a set each of maybe the hamstring curls on the medicine ball and the glute bridges, and just do one set of each one or two sets. That'll just get your, I guarantee you're gonna like your brain's gonna like, oh, I need to use these now. So when you're playing tennis, it will protect your knee. So it's not only gonna help you, like strengthen, but it's also gonna help activate. And that's the thing. I think a lot of times we just don't use them. That's why they get weak. And we need to like practice engaging them. And what's better to engage them is to activate them before you play tennis.
Okay, that helps. That helps a lot. Yeah,
Good. So let's just do
makes sense.
a routine. Let's say let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're playing tennis, and Tuesday and Thursday you do not. Let's just make that up, for example.
Hmm.
So Monday, I would make sure I'm getting up a little early, and I'm going to do reverse walks and one round of the hamstring curls and glute bridges, maybe one-legged if you can, otherwise two-legged. And then I might do a little, maybe the one that I showed you where you're on the side, you're low on a lunging position and you're leaning to one side and then to the other. That's a really good one as well. You could always do some of the band exercises, but when I say that, just one set. I mean, you literally, the warm up should be what, 5-10 minutes at the most, but your body's like, now, oh, I need to use my hamstrings and glutes. Got it. So then when you play tennis, you'll naturally use them more. Tuesday, you could do, seeing how you feel, you could do some knees past toes and see how you feel. Now, if the next day you're pretty sore and then you play tennis, that could be too much, right? So maybe you do your knees past toes the day before you don't play tennis. So maybe on a Friday, and that's your only day you do knees past toes. But the hamstring and glutes you could probably do on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and you should have no problems with the knee, because you're not really putting the knee in any positions where it would feel sore the next day. You'll feel sore in the hamstrings and glutes, but it's not really going to impact the knee itself. So I think doing knees past toes would be, you could try it the day before a tennis match, like, on a say Tuesday or Thursday. But if you feel pretty sore the next day, save it for a Friday. After your tennis match, do that, or a Saturday, even better. Like just one day, the next day you're not playing tennis.
Hmm.
Does that
Okay.
help? Does that make sense?
Oh, that helps a lot. Yeah, yeah.
Good.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah, all you got to do is try it for a week or two, and then just see how you're feeling. You got to give it a little bit of time though, and then you can adjust accordingly. And obviously, not everything's like, there's other things you can do. One-legged deadlifts are great. You can work on doing some plyometric stuff just to get your body used to jumping on one leg and balancing and things like that. But again, you get complicated, things get too much, right? So I think this is just where you're going to do a knee day. I'm doing
Hmm.
a knee day. And if you want to call that a rehab day and add shoulder stuff, fine. But it's not supposed to be taxing, not supposed to be like really tiring. You do it when you're kind of like not feeling great, you're kind of a little sore. That's a great day to do rehab day. And then you move on to like the next day you're feeling a little better, then you can maybe do something a little different. Okay?
Okay, great.
Cool.
Good.
All right. Well, I will want to hear from you. So let me know how it goes. And again, for those seeing this recording, please, you're seeing this, in the past, but I want to hear about how things are going. I can always give you some recommendations on how to improve it. Okay. So with that, we are finishing up a little early, but I think that's good. I didn't want to make this too complicated. So till next time, have a great night, and I'll see you soon, okay?